I'm Jim Check. It's November 10th, Monday, with Ian Burns, our managing editor, out there in the nation's capital. Kind of a cloudy day, but a nice day here in the Okanagan. We got lots to talk about, though. That ostrich cull reaction makes international news. We had one of the CFIA offices here. Well, we'll get into that. And Canada is a world leader in so many areas. Budget gets a dose of reality. Leading by example. Not. Canada's advantage over the US is the rule of law. Oil is boring. Forestry plan falls short. Housing plan falls short. COP30 begins. BBC in turmoil. In Canada, one of the last nations trumpeting climate grift. David Eby now recognizes the property turmoil. All that and a lot more on the really big show. We got lots today. But we made international news. Daily Mail actually reached out and asked for one of our pieces. Did I say pieces or feces?
Yeah, the cheeky little elves that they are, going around trying to get other people's videos.
Well, the Kelowna CFIA office defaced with feces and eggs. Here, we got a little clip here, our clip. One of our reporters went out and shot this. It's right by our office, actually. When they did that, even there's a notice on the door and says that this office had nothing to do with it.
That's a bit awkward, really, isn't it?
Yeah, so lots of reaction on that. Like I said, I think on our Instagram, it has over 800,000, TikTok, 300,000 or 400,000. Our X never seems to do that well, but other people take it, and it's doing really well on other people's X. And like I said, it's been also asked for by the Daily Mail. So this thing is making international news. And then and here's the reason why. And this is a little clip here from Daisy Media here. Just they had some drone footage, and this is after the culling. You can shut the sound off on here. Off. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I mean, we don't want to look at that too long. That's good.
You know, they do nothing but insult that guy, that Daisy guy. I think he's from Ottawa, actually.
Wow.
And he started up during the convoy, if I'm not wrong. But you hear nothing but insults directed at him. And, you know, Mark Miller was very nasty to him. But he's obviously doing something important, isn't he? Nobody else has got this, have they? As far as I'm aware. I don't think it's like CBC got the drones out or whatever. It's like clearly this guy is filling a hole.
Obviously, he's got notice too because the RCMP went looking for him, and there's an interaction that he recorded where they were threatening him, saying that he's inciting violence by reporting. Interesting.
I thought he was he kind of like ended up dressing down the cop, didn't he, in that video? Yeah. He ended up being the one to deliver the lecture, which was quite interesting. I suppose he was trying to say that he's trying to prove that he wasn't intimidated.
Interesting for sure. Lots of reaction out there on this for sure. Lots of reaction, and there's another piece out there right now saying a whistleblower from the CFIA saying that this wasn't the way to do this, that this was not humane. Obviously, the government media is saying it's very humane. So,
and a lot of Liberal ministers as well defending it. I think they would just prefer this to disappear, wouldn't they? They consider this to be immensely trivial nonsense and they don't want to hear about it. But again, it's one of those things where, and we say this all the time, the average person in the street has the brain power and the moral sense that apparently our masters don't have. Because the average person in the street would never have done this. Just like the average person in the street would never have done loads of things that this country has done, or this country's ruling class has done over the last 10 or more years. And it's starting to become a serious problem when the average person is better qualified to make basically every decision in Canadian society you've got a serious, serious problem. There's something very seriously wrong with the people in charge in this country, and it's starting to become quite frightening, I think.
Well, I grew up on a cattle ranch, and a large cattle ranch where we actually did cattle drives. We never would have done this. There was no way that we would go out and shoot a herd and let the herd watch you shoot the herd. You know what I mean? Because there's the animals panicking as this starts going on. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
I asked ChatGPT too. I asked ChatGPT, is this humane? You go ahead and ask it yourself. You see what it thinks. And I mean,
And it's right here. I'm seeing somebody saying, I've heard nothing from animal rights groups. No. And we get emails from the real hardcore animal rights people who go into the pig farms where they kill because of the pig slaughter. They go in there and record it. I'm sure you've seen the videos on social media. Where are they? Like they freak out about what happens to pigs.
um,
Are pigs higher up the chain of life compared to an ostrich? It's just where's the SPCA? Where's anybody? It's like dead silence.
you would have thought that they would have hauled these animals off into, like, typically like into like a slaughterhouse or something and do it away from the people that stood there for months now. Also, the turmoil and anguish they caused as the shots rang out through the night, and then there was more in the morning because obviously there was animals suffering.
It's just it's a screw up, and I'm sure if people ever come clean on this, they'll say sorry and they'll say it was a mistake. But
Well, we
it's
had
like
a
I like go back to what I said.
uh,
It's too many times now. How many
we,
times are the people in charge going to make mistakes and then later on say, "Oh yeah, whoops."
I did see somebody say there's a whistleblower out there, and they've tagged Sam Cooper in that, and we'll see. Interesting to see what comes of this. But you know what, I imagine there'll be some lawsuits. Yeah, it's just tough to look at.
Just a mistake. I mean, at the very like, think about you can think about it the way you want, any way you want, in sort of moral terms. But I think it was an administrative error. That is like undeniable. Surely, I think that's the first beachhead that needs to be seized by opponents of this. Is that it was a mistake by people in a position of authority. Then after that, then you can start talking about the sort of moral side of it, I think. But that's what I'm waiting to hear because obviously it was. I mean, clearly you don't do this kind of thing, do you? Not, and also like whatever happened to guns are dangerous, we hear very often.
yeah.
Like surely that should have been an absolute last resort to discharge firearms in the presence of loads of people. It's
Well,
so
again,
many problems with it.
again, if you go look at the government-funded media stories on this, marksmen used. I'm just like, if we'd done that with cattle on a cattle ranch, there would be no end to the amount of. Yeah, I'm just looking on CBC's website. No mention of this story at all. And I bet you it makes international stories because people are taking our video. And
It's on the BBC. It's on, like left-leaning um, media outlets around the world. But the left-leaning media outlets in this country don't want to talk about it, which tells you rather a lot, I think.
there you go. You're going to see our stuff, our work on the Daily Mail for sure today. They've asked for it. Yeah, sad, very sad. Abuse of power and privilege. We see that with the Freedom Convoy as well, when they used the Emergencies Act, which was said by the court to be an abuse of power and privilege, unnecessary violence. Evan Solomon again. This time at his old place there, CTV there. Listen to this. We're going to play a little bit of it as he tries to tell you, the Canadian public, that Canada leads in AI.
AI, a leading country in not just the innovation, but in our entrepreneurship. But we need to crowd in capital to build the digital infrastructure to make sure that we have these tools to serve Canadians.
So how does the implementation then go into that $13 billion in annual cost savings?
I will tell you, I am working closely with Joel Lightbound, my counterpart who's in charge of government transformation, to make sure that we modernize government service, to make it more productive and make it efficient so we can save more, so we can invest more. Like this budget is really important. And you know, your household, it depends what you invest in. The core insight into this budget, Mike, is that we're investing in capital costs. That means things like when you buy a house, the investment goes up. That's different than you buy new clothes.
I feel like you haven't answered the question of how AI is going to make government run more efficiently. And the reason I ask is because a lot of people have a memory of things, of technology being ushered in by a government, namely the Phoenix Pay system, and they go, well, is that what this is going to turn out to be?
So we've set up
because obviously, that was not something that went over so well.
Right. So, look, it's a great question about how this is going to function. We're setting up a new Office of Government Transformation. I will be part of that under the authority of Joel Lightbound. And I think what you'll see is, first of all, we've struck some MOUs, we've signed some memorandums of understanding with Canadian companies.
Okay, that's painful enough. We're leading in AI. Just show me. I mean, that's why I wish we could get the questions, and Evan Solomon would say this. Just name one company that competes on the world stage that leads. One, just one. Pick one.
Well, I've got this memorandum of understanding to show you.
Yeah. And Jeffrey Hinton, the Godfather. What does he do?
Yeah.
What?
Jeffrey Hinton moved to this country from somewhere else, and then there's that American fella in Edmonton. He also moved to this country, and they're really good at AI. So the money should be pouring in anytime now.
Just wait by the mailbox. Well, don't wait by the mailbox. Joel Lightbound's canceling the mail.
Yeah, don't bother waiting for the mail.
This is just gaslighting at the nth level. Like, to say to somebody's face, like, I mean, does this journalist at CTV know what AI is? Like, to keep listening to, and then Evan Solomon is really good at all the cliches. He studied his book of marketing things that McKinsey & Co. must have fed him. Build back better, stronger, all these euphemisms that mean nothing to the economy, mean nothing other than just another way to kind of grift the public.
It's also a lot of make work stuff for ministers and bureaucrats, isn't it? All of these like working groups, MOUs and agreements and things like that. This is the equivalent of like a builder or a roofer or something like that, just like kicking part of the roof off just to give himself a bit more work. It's like just to extend his hours a bit more. It's just,
they're going to
surely we can see through this nonsense.
They're going to open another office. How many new offices? How much more bureaucracy has been opened already? We've got the one projects office that has done 0 projects. We got that office, right? We got the this AI office. There was a couple more offices, if I can, it'll come to me in a second here. But we've opened a few more offices.
The housing one was huge.
The housing, the Build Back Better, Stronger, and that's coming up because I interviewed the head of, or one of the executives at the Canadian Home Builders of Central Okanagan here, and saying the housing budget falls short. Imagine that. Here's a dose of reality. CBC asking, like getting the wrong people in there saying, how is this budget? And you and I have said, this budget has a lot of nothing in it. The only thing it really has in it of any consequence is the Trojan horse hiding in there, and that's the climate grift called carbon capture. Let's listen to what he has to say, though. Don.
World Economic Time, there is a somewhat optimistic outlook for growth in this budget. I mean, how realistic do you think this budget outlook for the country's economic growth is?
I don't think it's realistic at all. Remember the old song, "Don't worry, be happy"? That's basically what the economic chapter says. Here we got 41 million Canadians thinking, like, we're in a big trouble here. we're going to lose our access to the US market. What's going to replace that in the near term? All of a sudden, we're going to export to Europe as higher productivity than we are. All of a sudden, we're going to export so much to China and India, which have made our lives miserable over the last couple of years. We don't have businesses investing already. Now they face the prospect they don't have a trade-free access to the US. All of a sudden, they're going to start to invest. I don't buy it. I don't think Canadians will buy it. I think the better course to say we're in a really tough position here, and it's going to take a lot of hard work, and it's going to take time. But instead, we get this economic outlook. In the blink of an eye, the unemployment rate's back to 6%. If that's going to happen, I'd be so happy you won't believe it. And I think I've sure wasted all my time worrying, but I think I haven't wasted the time worrying.
Well,
CBC doing their job defending the Liberal government.
What? I wonder what he said after that. I would say though, I mean, the budget, and Martin Carney was talking about this and is going to keep talking about this forever. It does include certain like tax write-offs, doesn't it? Expensing and all that sort of thing. And he's very excited about the marginal tax rates that he says are like the best, the most competitive in the world, or at least in the G7. So there is stuff in there, and obviously the defense, 80 billion, as he says, Mark Carney claims, Champagne claims. There's stuff going on there, but it's just, for me anyway, I was preparing myself. I was buckled in. I had all 5 seatbelts on, ready for this generational budget that was going to take us back to 1945, and it was going to be like, whoa, hold on to your hats, everyone. It was nothing of the sort.
A whole lot of nothing. There you go. Let's listen to what Francois Philippe Champagne, the 3-ring circus, the guy with the top hat that stands there in the middle of the circus. Let's listen to him.
Francois Philippe Champagne is the Minister of Finance. Thank you for joining me.
It's a real pleasure to be with you, Catherine.
You and the Prime Minister promised a budget that would be transformational, generational, but I'm sure you know there's a lot of criticism that it didn't meet the mark. The Ontario Chamber of Commerce says the budget is more transitional than transformational. The Business Council of Canada says it's not transformational. Economist Mike Moffat says on housing, disappointing is too weak of a word. Does it worry you when so many voices are saying they're not sure that this does the job?
I think Canadians understand there's a bit of headwind. We felt it in people feel it on the factory floor, in the fields. People have seen it in so many ways in their life. What we're saying, but if you look at Canada, we have the fiscal capacity to be able to invest in ourselves, and then we have to be judicious in where we invest. So infrastructure, housing, productivity and competitiveness, and obviously our sovereignty and our defense. And therefore, at the same time, you need to put the house in order. That's what people tell me. They said, we agree you need to be ambitious in your investment, but also rigorous in expenses. So I would say, if you compare Canada to all the other G7 countries, you would see that Canada stands out with respect to transforming and making generational investment. In that context, you would see that Canada...
You feel better now? You feel better?
Canadian experienced some headwind. Yeah, a little bit, mate. A little bit of headwind.
Who's he talking to? Who's he? Canadian tell him? Who's telling him?
I think he's talking to his own caucus, by the sounds of it. His own team, for sure, which includes the CBC, I would say. But somebody's just pointed out exactly what I was going to say. Somebody said it anyway. Free West here, which is that the debt to GDP, gross debt to GDP. Don't mess around with net debt. That's just a swindle as far as I'm concerned. But the gross debt to GDP in Canada is over 100% of the GDP, over 100% of the economy. It's shocking. It's cataclysmically bad. It's devastatingly bad. But because it's not as bad as like France or something like that, somehow that's okay. It's not okay. Canada's fiscal position is garbage. I can't believe that they've pulled this trick. This is his finest trick as a circus leader, is to actually make people just swallow that. And we have the CBC just straight over their head. You can have that, Champagne. I'm not going to even challenge you when you talk about how great the debt is in Canada. It's not great. And just look it up. Go on the IMF. Go anywhere. Bloomberg, anyone will tell you. It's not just me. It's terrible. Canada's debt situation is a catastrophe. It's almost one of the weakest points that this government has to argue with, and instead they've turned it into their biggest strength. I mean, I suppose in terms of like politics, that's genius, isn't it? But if you're going to be honest with the economics, it's not good. It's not a good situation.
Don't forget also AI. We lead in AI. I'm going to have to go through the stock market. I got a few of them later on here. They're just obviously not being reflected yet. But here's Mark Carney pitching. He's got his little, he's got it on his account here. Buy Canadian, build Canadian. Should we wait? How long should we wait for you to move your investments back to Canada and move Brookfield back to Canada? How long should we wait? Brookfield just did an $80 billion US deal in the United States. Should we wait? Lead by example. Not so much.
Does he still have any influence there in his old friends?
But what he says, though, and this is a big but, and not Gerald Butts, but a big but, he says that people will invest in Canada because, I don't even know, I won't even front run it. Let's just play the clip here.
Think of Canada, it has to be easy for them to think about it. Okay, it's got the lowest tax rate for investment. I'm going to have regulatory clarity. There's lots of people know this, there's lots of institutional capital in Canada and very strong banks, so I can get financed if I'm going to move forward. So I think those elements are there.
The U.S. is doing that too, though. So what is the extra thing that Canada?
Well, we have rule of law.
I think the one truth he said in there, we have good banks in Canada. That's the only truth I heard there. We have the rule of law. Okay.
He also talked about how, I think it was straight after that, started to talk about how, yeah, it was in fact, started to talk about how, like, when we have an issue in the society, we talk it out in public, we thresh it out, we figure it out together. It's like, what country does he live in? Is he still in Britain or something like that? Has he got his mind in America? Canada is not a country where things are openly discussed in public, because the media landscape and the whole intellectual system here, whatever network, whatever you want to call it, it's so stultified, and it struggles. Like, everybody here struggles to have an opinion that differs from the main allowed opinion, because even as mainstream as you like, the Conservative Party, they still get called out and attacked as though they're beyond the pale. Like, this is not a country where things are all like hashed out in public and we have this great sort of pluralistic culture. Really don't think so.
And then we'd also see investment flowing into Canada. We don't. We see investment flowing out of Canada. And again, her next question should have been, well, Mr. Carney, you said there's capital here. Why did you move Brookfield to the U.S.? The reason you stated then was access to capital, when you just said people will invest in Canada because of the access to capital. Is it a circular loop, or what's going on here? Doesn't make any sense, does it?
Oh, it does to some people, I suppose.
And then this one's even better, because this pipeline, then we can't get a straight answer on a pipeline. And here's this, she asks about a pipeline, and listen to this really, well, listen first.
Is this pipeline going to come?
It's so boring.
It's not actually.
It is.
For
No, but it is.
It is
because it's. Look, don't worry. We're on it. We're on it. Like, we're on it.
And
but there is this whole world.
Party?
Okay, hands up. Who's working on the pipeline in this room?
Isn't that a problem?
No. Look at all the variety. Like, Nav, like, does your this? We have.
Yeah, if there's more prosperity, they'll get more cell phone services.
But look. Okay, so what's going to drive one of the things? Don't worry, we're on the pipeline stuff. Danielle's on line one. Don't worry, it's going to happen. But, well, something's going to happen. Let's put it that way. It's not very good negotiating by my perspective.
One of my questions was, is this pipeline going to come?
It's so boring.
I mean, for something that is one of the most important issues, and it was part of their election issue, they promised a pipeline. And what's most important, and why our economic prosperity, and why we're also at the mercy of the United States, was a pipeline, and to trivialize it like that and to make it seem like the people in the room are deciding on a pipeline. It's not the people in that room deciding on a pipeline. It's major corporations in Alberta and that are deciding on a pipeline. It's about the prosperity of Canadians in general. But yeah, it's the people in the room, and it's boring. It's boring because you can't put a loaf of bread on your table. Yeah, that must be boring.
Can you imagine, bear in mind, he's the leader of a country talking about that country's primary export. Can you imagine that kind of thing happening anywhere else in the world? Can you imagine a leader giggling and saying it's boring? Like in Argentina or something, I'm really just going off the top of my head here, but I think it's agriculture is their biggest export. Can you imagine the leader of that country just went, oh, agriculture again, like shut up. Like, what's wrong with you? What is the matter with this chap? And I do feel like we talked about, or we just laughed there about the idea that Canada's this like great sort of pluralistic society where everybody has their opinion and we all work it out, and it's like, you know, it's very vibrant and all what other terms that he's used to describe Canada. I feel like if we truly did live in a country like that, there would be some mainstream discussion about how strange Mark Carney can sometimes be. I don't know if his like glucose is low or something, but sometimes he just sounds like a complete doofus and he just loses track of what he's saying. He's all over the place. He's the Prime Minister of Canada and he's saying, yeah, we'll have a pipeline. Maybe we'll have a pipeline. What's going on here? Like this, if you just change it from Mark Carney and his demeanor and his everything about him and make it Justin Trudeau, can you imagine the reaction to that? If Justin Trudeau was flapping around like an idiot like that on such an important subject? I just think it's way past time that Mark Carney was actually held to account for the way that he behaves in public, because it's extremely strange. This is not normal, responsible behavior from a leader. It's very, very peculiar.
It is one of the most important questions that Canadians want an answer to. And to trivialize it like that, to laugh about it, it really just trivializes what people are really thinking. Like, our economy is suffering. It's clear our economy is suffering. Unemployment's high. You know, the number they're talking about, we're going to talk about a little bit later, they're talking about these 67,000 jobs. When we look under the hood, you're going to see how much weakness there is. And even in that number they're touting. And this is the most important question. And this is how he treats that question. If this was America and we had this diversity of reporters, he would never survive that. He wouldn't survive it. And that's the problem. And one of the commenters here is, how do we change things? One thing is, you got to stop watching CBC and you got to find independent journalists like ourselves and start echoing their message, because we have to fight through this, because we have to get bigger messages out there. There's a few guys on Twitter that have a bigger voice than all of CBC and CTV combined. You have to start getting out. The liberals live in an echo chamber and they think they're protected by the CBCs and CTVs. And they need to know that there's real reporters out there. They won't let us have access to that. They don't give us the room.
Yeah, and it's also things like the Globe and Mail, which some people laughably refer to as conservative-leaning, right-wing, which is just an absurdity. But the Globe and Mail is kind of the closest thing that Canada has to a paper of record, like the New York Times or something like that, as feeble as they are. And they kind of maintain this narrative, which is why I find like often the most effective stories and consequential stories related to Canada tend to come from the foreign press. Like Bloomberg is one. Yeah. And like in the economic news, like the Financial Times as well, where they're literally just chatting about economics and numbers and things like that. Often that's where like the scandals come from, rather than, you know, it should be, the Globe and Mail should just absolutely mop up in this country. It has such a dominant position. Well, I mean, and yet it doesn't. But very rarely does it have like even a news leading story. And then obviously CBC, CTV, Global, they're all much of a muchness, really, aren't they?
You can go to CBC almost any time and you can see what they really want you to know. And it's not the economy for sure. It's always distractions. Daniel Smith, though, put out, the country's largest petroleum producer and largest pipeline operator, just put some key pieces on the board Friday morning. Energy Infrastructure Enbridge outlined plans to expand its mainline network by up to 400,000 barrels a day. That's the people in the room that want a boring oil thing. That's the people that want to help Canada's prosperity.
But again, just to hammer it, just to underline it 3 times, Canada's biggest export. This is what pays the bills for this country. If this country was a household, this is the head of the household bringing home the bacon. And this is the attitude to it.
Well, I mean, you see how they've treated Alberta over the past decade too. Alberta's been treated, the golden goose has been treated like the ugly stepsister, hidden and locked away in her room. And Karina Gold, still an MP, said to landlock their resources. Mark Carney in his book Values said to landlock or to keep 80% of those oil reserves in the ground.
Just remarkable, isn't it? Again, I have to say it again. Can you imagine any other country on the planet that would be this hostile to its own golden goose, to its money earner? I just cannot imagine it. In Britain, an example would be that kind of hostility against finances, like the City of London and banks and things like that. There is a bit of that in Britain, but it's nothing like this. It's almost like pathological at this point.
We have one more clip here because this is the thing that I think is the most important thing, or the Trojan horse in that budget. Oh, you don't have it? Do you have that link there? Can you see it? Yeah, he's going to play the link. Is carbon capture is the new climate grift, and that's what is hidden in this budget. And we already have one company coming here, Tim Hodgson touted it, Carbon Capture USA. They left the United States to come to Canada because the USA cut off all the climate credits. And they've come here now, and in the budget, there's 60% tax credits there, 60% tax credits. So of course they came to Canada to take Canadian taxpayer dollars and also have the ability to sell these carbon credits to the oil field companies that are likely going to be mandated to buy them. And it'll just be basically being a way to tax our energy. Let's listen to this piece here.
Got to put capital work in the country. So you bring us down. Okay, with that.
I'm not going to bring you down. I'm going to say, why can't we go even higher? Let's use the energy sector as an example.
Yep.
There are a lot of things that are preventing them from even bringing a major project to your office, according to them. Bill C-69, emissions cap.
Nope.
I mean, that's what they say.
That's what they say, but they're wrong.
Why?
Yeah, they're wrong. No, they're wrong because literally we are getting projects coming in. We're in discussions with the province of Alberta directly on things. But look, we've also got a view that as no, Amber,
I don't want to
Amber,
keep
no,
either.
like that. We've had too long down, looking down, not taking risk. This is like this. The risk is not to take risk. In a situation like this, you've got to decide where you're going. And we got to put capital work in the country. So you bring us down. Okay, with that.
I'm not going to bring you down.
Yeah.
I'm going to say, why can't we go even higher? Let's use the energy sector as an example.
Yep.
There are a lot of things that are preventing them from even bringing a major project to your office, according to them. Bill C-69, emissions cap.
Nope.
I mean, that's what they say.
That's what they say, but they're wrong.
Why?
Yeah, they're wrong. No, they're wrong because literally we are getting projects coming in. We're in discussions with the province of Alberta directly on things. But look, we've also got a view that, as shared by the government of Alberta in the grand bargain, I'm going to quote the Premier of Alberta, that the future of oil export is going to be low carbon. So twinning additional, in that case, oil sands development with carbon capture makes sense. By the way, it also helps create a multi-billion-dollar industry for Canada. But you say energy. Look, we are in a position where the country can grow its grid.
There you go. He just laid it out there. Creates a
So good we played it twice.
But yeah, it creates a multi-billion-dollar industry, carbon capture. So that's the gun.
I think he said multi-billion even, didn't he? That's what I picked up.
For all you people out there, just go on whatever you want to use, Google Chat, whatever you want to use, and search Brookfield carbon capture. You're going to find headlines from a couple of years ago that say Brookfield invests billions and billions of dollars into carbon capture. Payday is about to show up.
Subsidy capture.
Payday is about to happen. So basically, carbon capture is going to give companies like the American companies are going to come here in droves, all right, the ones that can't operate in the United States because they're tech. They even said it. You can go to their website. It says on there they can't operate in the United States because it's just not viable. So you can come here and take a 60% tax credit from the taxpayer, and then you can charge the energy companies. You can basically have the right to charge our energy companies, basically tax them. What a boom for private companies that have invested in carbon capture. Something a tree can do better. Crazy.
But who stands to benefit? He talks about a multi-billion-dollar industry, but for whom?
Yeah.
For whom is this a multi-billion-dollar industry? Is it American carpetbaggers who are coming up here to get subsidies on an uneconomical, what some people call a boondoggle, just a waste of time. Because I'm very familiar with this line of reasoning from Britain, the UK, where they talked repeatedly, both the Conservatives and the Labour Party, the Labour Party is now in power. They talk repeatedly about the many, many billions of pounds that were going to flow into the country for net zero related projects. And they kept talking it up like primarily as an economic asset to do this. And here we are, like several years later, and it's just a gigantic black hole for the finances in that country. Not to mention the energy is the most expensive in the rich world or the industrialized world, so they can't compete in industry. And there are people like just users in homes who can't put the heating on in their homes. But for some reason, they were the British people were told that this was going to be like this great economic asset. It was for someone. I mean, somebody's made billions of pounds out of it in that case, and I feel like the same is going to be true in Canada. There will be someone that makes billions of dollars from this, but I think it's a little bit disingenuous to suggest that it's going to be Canada as a nation. Like Canada is going to benefit from this.
You look at the way they're walking this in. They're walking it in very slow. I was watching it on Bloomberg this morning where they're running pieces. They're getting shills coming out and saying, we have to balance the environment and the energy. We have to find a balance. And guess what the balance is? Carbon capture, the new climate grift, which is, it's just absolutely ludicrous when a tree does this 10 times better. A tree does this. But don't forget to go to Carbon Capture USA and they'll tell you why this tree is no longer viable, because trees apparently are always getting burnt up from wildfires. And you even said, some scientists came out and said trees no longer work with photosynthesis. You could have fooled the tree, but
yeah, that's real. That was a real study. But yeah, I mean, never mind. Really, I say this every time. One more time. Why not? Why not a college try at this? It doesn't matter anyway, because Canada doesn't matter. Canada does not matter when it comes to carbon emissions. It literally just doesn't matter. Like we are like, people don't even know that we're at the party. If it's the carbon emissions party, like nobody even knows that we're here. We're like right at the back with our bottle of beer. No one knows we're here, but we're saying like, yeah, we're gonna cut all our emissions down. It's like, what? Did somebody just say something there? Nobody cares. Canada can have no impact on global emissions by itself. And the other countries who can have an impact, like China and the United States and India, don't care. Don't care even a little bit.
Wait for the sales pitch, though. It's going to be multi-billion-dollar deal for companies that have invested billions and billions into carbon capture. And again, just do the search yourself. You'll find it. Anyway, the Liberals were touting the 67,000 jobs there last week in Parliament. That one lady even did that meme, 6-7 meme. She even got, they have no class whatsoever. But if you break down the numbers, though, it's 20,000 full-time jobs lost and about 83,000 part-time jobs gained. That's not a healthy economy. Sorry. And there it is. There's a chart there. You can even take a look at it yourself. There you go. Part-time employment, 85. In the little yellow box there, 85. Full-time employment, negative 18, which turns out to be a net 67,000. But pick the stat, cherry pick it, make up some stuff, because Canada's economy is suffering. You can play games all you want, and an unemployment rate that is almost double the United States, And you're just playing games here, playing games with people's minds too. And here's let's look at the top market cap companies. Tell me which one's an AI company. Because obviously in the United States, NVIDIA has the highest market cap in the world now. Also is double that of Canada's GDP. So obviously if we lead in AI, we must have one of these companies must be on the Toronto Stock Exchange somewhere. Is it? I don't see it. Do you?
I'm not seeing it now, unless Enbridge have gone into AI these days.
But what you do see is, other than the banks, if you take the banks and Shopify out of this, what's left? Oh, right, resources. So in there, Brookfield.
And Thomson Reuters, which is some sort of bizarre behemoth, weird organization.
That owns lots of newspapers. So they have good access to the, subsidies. There you go. I don't see an AI company, Evan. Do you see one? Because I don't see it. Perhaps you can point it out to me, because I don't even see it. And again, look at the market cap of Shopify. I think NVIDIA has a market cap higher than all the TSX combined.
And it's also kind of a little bit embarrassing, isn't it, that Shopify is this like complete monster titan in Canada. Considering in the US, if Shopify was based in the US, it would be, it would be an also-ran, wouldn't it? It would be very much like third tier.
And if you're going to put Shopify and call it a Canadian success, which you should, maybe you should listen to what the CEO says. What does he say?
Yeah.
It's all about energy. It's all about energy.
But also was very vocal against the attempted capital gains tax increase. So another sort of
drive people away.
Attempts to get money from tax. Yeah, he was very critical of that.
There you go. Trump talking about Canada again. We'll play a small clip here.
Why are you deciding to end trade talks with Canada, and what rate are you looking to set?
So Canada put a charge on some of our companies, and Canada's been a very difficult country to deal with over the years. We hear Canada, we have a great relationship with the people of Canada, but it's been very difficult. And they put a charge, and they were a little bit early. We found out about it. So, and we have all the cards. We have every single one. We don't want to do anything bad, but they have economically, we have such power over Canada. I'd rather not use it, but they did something with our tech companies today, trying to copy Europe. They copy.
That's good. That's good. Wow. But you know what? It doesn't matter, because they're coming here anyway. Companies are coming here because there's no rule of law down there. So.
Yeah, exactly. They just cross the border and they just can't wait to set up an office, can they? It's like, rule of law. Yes.
Why did Mark Carney move his company into a country that lacks rule of law? It's Canada's one of Canada's top companies, right? I think it's ranking number 4, and yet he moved it into a nation that lacks rule of law. It's just odd, no? Don't you find that odd?
Yeah, very, very peculiar decision to make, isn't it, as the chairman of the board there?
And he also said at the time when he did move it there that it was for access to capital. But he said in that interview that people are moving here because of access to capital, which, again, I'm getting dizzy. And here is a Fitch now saying maybe you guys should just pump the brakes on all this debt. Let's listen here what this MP Sandra has to say. Copina.
Breaking news, it took one day for Fitch Ratings to issue a warning that this Liberal government's persistent increase in spending is eroding Canada's finances and putting pressure on Canada's credit rating. So why is this important? So our country's credit rating is a major factor in determining the interest rates that are charged on the mountains of debt that the Liberals are accumulating. So think lower credit rating means higher interest. And in budget 2025, this translates into a general government deficit of 3.3%, which is higher than the median of a AA rating of 2.3%. And it is substantially.
That's good. Downgrade would not be good for Canada. A downgrade would not be good for Canada.
But like we were having a chat about this, weren't we? And if that did happen, Fitch did that, then the Liberal line would just be to talk about Moody's or one of the other credit rating agencies.
IMF,
just say, we got a AAA rating with this group. It's kind of like
they would drag
the thing is, they get away with it. That's the main problem. Just like we were talking earlier about Canada's absolutely abysmal debt situation, the tragedy, the catastrophe of Canada's debt, which is just overflowing, intolerable levels of debt. And yet every single day the Liberals talk about how great Canada's fiscal position is and how much fiscal headroom we have and how we have low debt. And they just get away with it. Nobody ever says anything to them. No, the people that they, shout this at don't ever shout anything back saying, hold on a second. All of these interviewers at CTV, CBC, even like Bloomberg and the sort of ones that actually know their onions, they never say anything about it. And and the same will be true of this.
Well,
Fitch downgrades. Oh, well, we'll just move on to another one. And then nobody's going to say anything, and it's fine.
Let's do our daily trip to the CBC and see what they want you to think about today. See what they have on their agenda for you. Measles. And we scroll down there, and then they got some neo-Nazi event. I don't know. And then if you go down even a little bit further, they got a few Trump stories. Trump pardons Rudy Giuliani. Trump threatens to sue BBC. And then they got a couple of hit pieces for Polyev barging into the office yelling. Is Polyev's leadership in trouble? All the good stuff.
Well, we've also got, mate, you've ignored, not really being fair on CBC here. We've also got, marriage was never an option for me, but now in my 60s, I find myself looking at rings.
What? That's good. Do you know what I mean? Like, these are the stories that are important to Canadians. These are the stories. Sometimes they call it the Trump network, the TDS network. Maybe they should change their logo. Well, here you go. From one of the, from Holly Dona Blacklock, student loan write-offs will cost taxpayers a paltry $197 million this year, despite interest waivers and generous repayment terms, budget documents show. An earlier internal report, and that's from an earlier blamed it on hard times. There you go. They predict more write-offs. A total of 264,000 Canadian students, financial assistance program debts totaling $2.95 billion were in collection. Isn't that crazy? 264,000 people in debt collection there, worth $2.95 billion with CRA.
This is another thing that the Liberals often talk about with glee, including Mark Carney in that interview that we were looking at, that fireside chat. He's talking about how Canada has the best educated workforce in the whole world. They can't be that well educated, can they, if they're forfeiting their debt, Like, it's one of those questions that should naturally follow from a statement like that, which is this actually beneficial? Is this actually good for the economy?
It's just another mess. And they're touting their forestry program, right? I think it's $1.25 billion, they say, for forestry. $700 million of that is loans. And then the rest of that is in some kind of like programs for value-added stuff, which really does nothing to address the real problem with forestry, which has been going on for years now. And we've done so many stories on forestry, I almost get sick of repeating myself. But to hear Gavin Dew, the local MLA, talks what really ails BC's forestry sector, and it's the government working against it. It's access to fiber is one of the number one things. None of that addressed. None of that addressed in this forestry plan. Who's taking the $700 million loan? Like, if you're a forestry, like Canfor kiboshed their expansion in Houston, about a year ago now? About a year ago. Kiboshed it, said BC's uninvestable. You think if you offered them a loan that they would keep going? No. You got to fix the certainty. You got to give access to fiber. And if you go read the article here, and we put out a request for the forestry critic here in BC, and we're going to also put out a request to the forest minister here in BC, because tough times in forestry. I worked in forestry probably for 10 years of my life. I have lots of family members that work in forestry still to this day. Well, some of them no longer. And then I also have lots of friends that worked in the forestry industry. And you know what I mean? It's according to what Gavin is putting out here, the province has decided to decrease output to 45 million. Actual harvests have fallen even lower in 2025. The projection for output is a paltry 29 million cubic feet. It's the lowest since 1959. That's the thing they complained about. I interviewed one of the executives for AP Planers. Access to fiber is what he said. And it says, well, 16 million shortfall represents the equivalent of 20 sawmills worth of wood not going to market, along with the roughly 15,000 jobs. It's access to fiber, yet that's not addressed, in their forestry plan. To say you're going to give people loans or access to loans, a lot of those things never get taken up on. But it sure sounds good when you stand at the podium, though, right? Look at what we're doing. And here's the result. Here's another one. West Fraser 100-mile lumber closing permanently, December 2025. Those communities can't stand the loss of good-paying jobs like that. Those guys in there, are all making north of $70,000 a year in entry-level jobs. And, they buy pickup trucks and build families and houses and all that stuff. You take away that, you basically take away the lifeblood of the community. And this has been going on way before Trump. Kofi, I did an interview with them probably about a year ago, and they talked about 10,000 job losses in the prior 2 years. Access to fiber was named over and over and over again. I interviewed David Eby. He also acknowledged that and said they were going to work harder on access or permitting. Where is that? Where is this solution for permitting? Where is that? You talk about a loan. That doesn't address the real issue.
But it's politics as well, something that we don't maybe talk about that much, but it's a political choice, isn't it? Because they might want access to more forests to cut down, but two very, very, very strong lobbies in British Columbia don't want that. First Nations lobby and environmentalists.
That's
and, mixed in with the metropolitan area, which is so vote rich in the Vancouver area. It's politics, isn't it?
Well,
let's be honest about it.
AP Planer said, he said that everybody in the voting bloc there thinks all the trees look like they're in Stanley Park and they don't want none cut down. And also he linked the close ties the NDP had with Stephen Guilbeault, the then environment minister, and saying they didn't want any trees cut down in BC. So there you go. Like I said, we're looking at getting a couple more interviews. And I also interviewed on Friday, I believe it was, Cassidy DeVeers. She's one of the executives for Canadian Home Builder Supply here in the central Okanagan. And she said the federal budget fails to support home ownership for the next generation. She gave it an F. Imagine that. You can go watch that full interview. One of the biggest things, one of the biggest questions is for young people is the down payment. And it wasn't addressed. She said there was more in the last budget. Then there's nothing really in this budget. There's nothing new in here. And she said, if anything, it actually has slowed it down because everybody's waiting for this no GST for first-time home buyers, and it's not put into ascension yet. So it's stalled everything. So even the little bit of activity that was going on has actually been stalled. This budget fails, she says. So, but what do they stand at the podium? They say, our build Canada strong, build homes. What do they opened up an office. And she said,
give someone a lot of money to run it as well.
4,000 homes that worked out to $3 million a home when they own the land. And she said, give us the money. We could do something with it. We could actually put people in homes. Go watch the interview. Again, it's just podium talk that turns into nothing. Podium talk. If only we could photo ops and podium talk, right? But CBC doing the work and telling you, if you can't afford food, start eating the expired food. Here you go. Let's listen to this.
A grocery store in Quebec is promising big savings at a time when food prices keep rising. The low-cost chain sells discounted items, sometimes past their best before date. As the CBC's Gabriel Ginty found out, shoppers say the deals are hard to beat.
I'm at a type of grocery store that's gaining a lot of momentum. It sells discounted.
Yeah, I mean, you get the idea, right? So now they're telling, the people that don't get to access the government climate grift or any of these other policies, or you don't work for the government, there's lots of expired food out there for you. You go ahead, get some.
It's so humiliating, isn't it? For a country like this, for this to happen in Canada. You would think that the people that created this situation, the ruling class, for want of a better term, you would think that they would show some contrition now and then. You'd think that they would walk around with their heads bowed, saying sorry all the time. Just bumping into people in the street and just saying, sorry, yeah, I'm really sorry for what I've done. But there's none of that, is there? That's something that actually really scares me, is that there seems to be no there is no sense of responsibility from the people that actually created this situation. And when I say it's humiliating, I mean, this is almost like, it's like being put in charge of one of the best football teams or something like that in the world, and just like losing game after game after game after game, finishing near the bottom of the table. It's like that. It's like it's an achievement almost to fail because you had so many advantages given to you. It's yeah, it's just bleak, isn't it? It's almost too much to take, and we do this every day.
COP30, this is from the food professor. COP30 begins in Brazil today, and get ready for it, because this is the time to virtue signal.
They hate, by the way, have you ever heard in the House of Commons, the Conservatives from time to time reference him, the food professor, Sylvain Charlois. Every time they do it, you should go and listen. Anyone here, anybody listening to this that hasn't seen this happen, go and listen to House of Commons when his name is mentioned and see what the Liberal MPs do. They all jeer, like very loudly. They'll go, because they hate him. They think that he's some kind of dishonest political actor or something like that. The dude he's a professor. He's an academic who monitors food prices. But they, yeah, that's just something that's very, very interesting about the Liberals, obviously, because the Liberal Party, they're supposed to represent the expert class, aren't they? And they're very deferent to experts, unless it's an expert that disagrees with their policies, like Trevor Tombe or Sylvain Charlois, in which case, boo.
He just got interviewed on CBC for dairy management too, supply management, and he credited them and said they did a good job because he says it adds to the cost of dairy for people. But you know that interview probably just got put way, way, way down there, right?
He also was complaining quite noisily about the counter tariffs because he was saying that it was adding to the prices of food, and again he was kind of ignored for that, wasn't he?
Common sense. Anyway, here's Mark Carney getting ready for COP30. Climate competitive strategy, attracting massive investment in Canada's clean future. I guarantee it, all those companies in the United States that were living off climate credits, they're coming to Canada for a 60% tax credit. You can bet on it. Like, they're going to come, but they're going to be dipping into your pocket. And then they're going to have the ability to tax our energy. Isn't that a gift? I mean, why wouldn't they come? That's what we're going to get. Climate grifting at the best. And Mark Nixon said this has got to be one of the, I don't know, he just wrote that Brookfield. And I said, just go search it yourself. Just go search Brookfield carbon capture. Just search that and look at the billions and billions of dollars that are invested in carbon capture. It's almost like payday showing up. The sun's coming up. And Dan Elvis had some reaction to this, you know, sending off the money. They still haven't answered to this BC Beijing ferry thing. And then all of it, there's a really good clip out there. John Stossel interviewed one of the ladies that started this climate, what do you want to call it? Climate. She said she was one of the early authors of the first papers on climate hysteria. And, you know, she did it with the hurricanes. And then she also realized a couple of things that didn't make a lot of sense. But we're going to play a small clip from this. I advise you to go watch the full clip, though.
Frogs, you know, everything.
Airplane turbulence blamed on changing air currents.
Scientists expect turbulence like this to become more frequent due to climate change.
Childhood obesity through inactivity caused by heat.
A new study showing how climate change is making our children more obese.
Oh, you've seen some good ones. You've seen some good ones. The issue is, this is a way to get, you can always get a paper published that says that. You can get money to do that. You're going to get a good press release. I mean, this is, you know, it's playing into that whole professional game. If this was just a silly academic game, it wouldn't be so bad. But the real issue is that blaming everything on climate change detracts from the real underlying problems, which get ignored. People just throw up their hands. Well, it's climate change.
What's the real underlying problem?
Well, poverty, lifestyle, poor governance, poor land use, poor city planning, on and on it goes. There are all sorts of underlying problems. behind all these things that get ignored. Oh, it's climate change. So we need to solve our real problems rather than trying to solve fake problems.
People are dying. The potential extinction of the human race. The planet's on fire.
The planet's on fire.
That's Bill Nye.
Okay. In terms of lives lost, I mean, over the past 100 years, the number of lives lost from extreme weather or droughts or whatever has dropped by 97%. It's a paltry sum.
97%. More people are living with slightly warmer temperatures.
Yeah.
You got to go watch the full interview.
Yeah, but this is not controversial fringe stuff. Like I've said ad nauseum. Look at the IPCC's reports. Like that is the gold standard, and they talk about the worst case scenario, the very, very worst case nightmare scenario, is that in the year 2100, life is hard for quite a large number of people, but not the majority of the planet. But life is hard for people in the parts of the world that are already now today vulnerable to climate change. Places like the Sahel. The Sahel is that bit that's basically where the Sahara Desert meets the forests of Africa, or the savannah. You know that. You look on a map, you'll see what I mean, or just type Sahel into Google. Like that's one of the most vulnerable places, but that's vulnerable now because they've had drought for so long, and the Sahara and that area, that neck of the woods, has changed climatically many times in recent eons. But that's the rub of it. It's not going to be. The world is not on fire. It's not going to be like the end of the species. The planet's not going to die, as certain people keep claiming, like Elizabeth May when she comes out relentlessly with misinformation and falsehoods. Almost seems to me designed to make people afraid, to make people anxious. If I lived in the Sahel, if I lived in Chad, I would be very anxious about climate change. Yeah. But as it happens, I live in Canada, and I'm not particularly freaking out about it. It does look like it's going to be pretty bad, but it's absolutely not going to be the end of the world.
I advise you to watch that full thing. It's well worth your time. She quotes the IPCC many times and also says most of the funding for academics over the past few years, well, since 1990, I think she goes back to, has been, if you have a study on climate hysteria, you get funded. If you're on the other side of it, you don't get funding. So obviously. She also had another graph in there on wildfires in Canada, and it shows you that they're on the decline as well. And a lot of the fires that they stood at the podium and tried to blame it on, like Jasper Fire, that tried, Gibbo tried to blame it on climate change. Turns out, if you read the reports, that it was on failure of government to mitigate there. And then again, the Nova Scotia fires, they tried to blame that on climate change. And then the wildfire fighters came out and said, nope. Mitigation efforts, again, you were warned about that this is a powder keg waiting to happen. Massive lawsuits happening right now in the United States over the Las Vegas fires there. The city of Las Vegas, Los Angeles getting sued, as well as the government of California for the multitude of failures that got on there. Supposedly that they left that fire burn against the advice of the fire crews there and said, we can't leave this fire, and they left it, and that's what it turned into. President Trump calling out the shameless hypocrisy of the climate COP30 because apparently they cut down 100,000 trees to make a highway to this new UN summit, and of course all the jets that are on the tarmac there too. Like, why not, right? Nothing says elitism like a private jet to a foreign country.
The most amazing thing is Prince William, who went in, in a very sort of passionate way about climate change. His PR team posted photographs to promote his appearance there in Brazil. They post photographs of him in his royal jet, like looking like he was studying something with the little plane window. It's just like, just piss off. I think I can use the P word on that one. That's just so. It's like, who's paying attention to you? Who the hell is going to listen to you when you're such an obvious hypocrite and you don't even care? You're even bragging about it, like, bugger off.
Canada lost its measles status, and that's, again, a lot of people have pointed this out to immigration because Canada has basically eliminated measles. And then with rampant, out of control immigration from countries that didn't really have measles vaccination, we have measles again. But not according
Yeah, they've not said anything about that, have they? But it's certainly true. It's absolutely true that there are certain demographics, there are certain nationalities that are very, very suspicious of vaccines. I mean, Pakistan is very famous for that. Pakistan is, it's a really hardcore job as an NGO, like MSF or whoever it is that goes out and tries to give polio vaccines to people in rural Pakistan. It's a serious job because they sometimes get killed. That's how hostile they are to it. And I mean, I don't mean to pick on Pakistan. There's loads of other places that do this, but or that have that attitude rather. But I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. They haven't really said much about it, though, have they? But obviously they wouldn't. If that is true, they wouldn't say it anyway because it would be too awkward.
It's been mentioned before. And then we're trying to get through a few of these here real quick because we've got quite a bit of stuff left, actually. MP says he defected to the Tories because to the Liberals after being yelled at and called a snake. And this is the story that is really kind of like dominating CBC and CTV News. This is the thing instead of the real stuff, the budget and all that stuff. So this is a great distraction of how Pierre Poilievre is falling apart. And then, another story there, Poilievre, they're looking, they're even doing stories about who would his successor be. So this is all leading up to it. The Poilievre was speaking in Kelowna here, and some strange reason, and we're looking into this too, the Kelowna Chamber canceled the event, but then Poilievre's team took it over, so he is still appearing here in Kelowna. So again, we're just going to try and get through some of this stuff because we got quite a bit here. We got BC News, though. Let's head into the BC News.
Coming to you live from the Now Media Newsroom.
And you'll have to forgive me, we're going to pick up the pace here a little bit. I did interview Sylvia Weir, the new Interior CEO. We got lots of problems here in British Columbia with ER closures, mass resignation of the OBGYNs in Kamloops, psychiatric doctors in Vernon, and then the whole pediatrics fiasco, which led to the resignation of the former CEO here in Kelowna. And it's a good interview. I would say it's about 30 minutes. I think she gave us about 30 minutes of her time. And we'll check in with her. But I think it's worth going and watching that interview. It's an exclusive interview that we got here at Now Media. So again, just in the speed of things, Premier, they're sending out a letter now to people saying, Eleanor Circle put this out too, that there's a letter that's gone out to people just like, call us. We got a helpline here. If you can't get your mortgage renewed, if you're having trouble with, permits and property sales tax, property tax, all that stuff, they've opened up a can of Pandora's box there that I don't know if they know how to put it back in. And this could be 7 years, and it could get a lot worse before it gets any better. And this adds to the uncertainty here. And if you look at this map here, these are the areas that don't have treaty, and this is the areas that in Canada in the yellow that you would say there's a cloud of uncertainty.
Tough times for Quebec.
Yeah. Again, we're not going to get into too much of this stuff here. Sorry. Kelowna Business, she got all her ivermectin taken away from her here. She was selling illegally imported ivermectin. But you can go read that story in Kelowna Now as well. We're just going to kind of give you a couple heads up. But we're going to get to international news because we got a little bit to get through. It's a little bit of a tough slug in there, but it's good stuff though.
Coming to you live from the Now Media Newsroom.
Well, the BBC, the famous and the, what's that, never, ever, I guess you could call them into question. They are the leaders in truth, right? Isn't that right?
They do have a fact checker department, BBC Verify, which I just find so funny because it started off, they have this woman that she either leads it or is very very senior in that division, and very early on in the history of BBC Verify, she made 3 or 4 obvious mistakes and repeated falsehoods in a Verify video, which has become notorious. You can search it on the internet. It involves I can't remember the guy's name now. His internet name is Sargon of Akkad. I can't remember what his actual name is, but it involves him. He was, because he ran as a candidate in a political party in England, and it's so funny because basically the BBC have been getting things wrong since day one, really, but they're so proud of themselves. They're so proud that they started a Verify group, which was wrong in one of its first videos.
Well, Trump's threatened to sue them for $1 billion after the doctored video showed up. And I think it was a Daily Wire. Was it Daily Wire? Or who outed them on this? I think it was a Daily Wire, wasn't it?
It was a Telegraph.
Telegraph, yeah. The Telegraph outed them.
I believe, yeah.
On the doctored video. I think we showed you the video before, where they stitched 2 pieces together to make it look like it was seamless. And it made it look like Donald Trump was inciting violence. I think they're going to lose this case because it just looks pretty bad. It looks really bad. We won't play it again. You can go watch it if you want, but we won't play it again in the interest of time. But we're going to play some of the reaction, though. And this is after BBC's Director General, Tim Davie, resigned, and as did the new CEO. Let's play this little clip here from GB News.
It turns out American President Donald Trump was onto something.
Where are you from?
BBC.
Okay. Here's another beauty.
It's a good line. Impartial, free and fair.
Yeah, sure.
Well, that criticism of the BBC and John Sopel, who was talking to there, apparently was well-founded, because the so-called impartial and accurate public service broadcaster is nothing but.
You are fake news.
That's good. That's good. But anyway, the BBC Director General, Tim Davie, and News CEO Deborah Turnus forced to resign. And we do have a clip from Deborah here as she was walking in, another journalist. This is what they love when a journalist can go after another journalist. Here you go. Let's listen to what she has to say about making mistakes.
I would like to say it has been the privilege of my career to serve as the CEO of BBC News and to work with our brilliant team of journalists. I stepped down over the weekend because the buck stops with me. But I'd like to make one thing very clear. BBC News is not institutionally biased. That's why it's the world's most trusted news provider. And if
why did you fail to deal with the mistakes that were made?
And see my teams. Thank you so much.
Right,
for
we're
being
going
here.
now. Do you think that the journalists are institutionally corrupt, like President Trump says? Do you think the journalists
Of course our journalists aren't corrupt. Our journalists are hard-working people who strive for impartiality, and I will stand by their journalism.
Is there institutional bias at the BBC?
There is no institutional bias. Mistakes are made, but there's no institutional bias.
But why weren't the mistakes dealt with on Trump, on anti-Semitism, on women's rights?
I'm sure that story will emerge, but for now I'm going to go in and see our team.
Do you think the board acted against you? Do you think the board acted against you?
This way, Deborah.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
So the question is, why weren't they corrected? I mean, it's not like this is a small story. I mean, this affected, many things. This piece would have been used for a lot of the Republican rhetoric, the Democratic rhetoric talk, all kinds of stuff. These are huge stories. This is a huge story. Because it's not like, you said that, Joe Blow stole some candy from a store that doesn't affect anything. This is the most powerful country in the world that you are manipulating the voter base of the most powerful country in the world intentionally.
And also the voter base of Britain, which is supposed to be America's best ally, or one of its best allies.
I mean, this story is not going to go away. But as bad as the BBC is, the CBC says, hold my beer. I can show you how to do it worse. Just that we don't have any other journalists that'll call them out. Where's our Daily Wire? Where's our Telegraph? You know what I mean? Where's our Daily Mail? Because all we have is CBC, CTV. Basically, they just basically walk in lockstep. Go read their websites. They're almost the same stuff. There's one great journalist on CTV, and that's Fassi Capellas. But other than that, I have no idea what they're doing over there.
But this is, CBC might learn a lesson from this. Of course they won't, but they might. The way that they report anything to do with Donald Trump is disgraceful. They disgrace themselves every single day, every hour of every day when they report on Trump or anything in America. They're not professional. They're an embarrassment, the CBC, and that is also true of the BBC. But it's very telling. The BBC is held to high standards because the BBC is something that people actually want to preserve and fight for. There is actually a desire to rescue the BBC from its ideological captors who've held it for so long. With the CBC, nobody takes it seriously in the first place, so nobody cares. There's nobody that wants to fight for the CBC except the partisans who get what they want from it already.
BBC chairman apologized for error of judgment. This is not an error of judgment. Like I said, this is not an error. This is intentional. This is intentionally spliced together for a message. Like, this is not going away. And this liberal Democratic leader urges Keir Starmer to go after Trump. Good one. Let's see it. Let's see it, Keir. Let's see it.
He represents a party of, dangerously sick in the head individuals, Liberal Democrats. They're just that, and I'm sorry, Lib Dems. They're just completely disconnected from reality, the Lib Dems, and he is the chief clown. So I'm not surprised he would say something as stupid as that.
I was going to play a couple more, but I mean, it's kind of the same thing. It's a big story, though, right? On the other side of that, it looks like that deadlock has been broken in the United States. Looks like they're going to reopen the government. I think 6 Democrats crossed over, and they're going to pass that CR. And obviously, the Democrats losing their minds. Imagine that.
It's just now a feature of American democracy, isn't it? American government. The shutdowns. Like, sure enough, there'll be another one soon enough, won't there? It's just
if you want to worry about something, you should worry about guys like this, though. This speech by none other than Antonio Guterres here. Listen to what he wants now.
Hatred and lies online is causing grave harm to our world. Misinformation, disinformation, and hate speech are fueling prejudice and violence, exacerbating divisions and conflicts, demonizing minorities, and compromising the integrity of elections. Threats to information integrity are not new, but they are proliferating and expanding with unprecedented speed on digital platforms and supercharged by AI technologies. Science, facts, human rights, public health, climate action are under attack. And when information integrity is targeted, so is democracy, which depends on a shared, fact-based perception of reality. False narratives, distortions, and lies breed cynicism, disbelief, and disengagement. They undermine social cohesion, putting the Sustainable Development Goals further out of reach. Opaque algorithms push people into information bubbles and reinforce prejudices, including racism, misogyny.
Stop it.
I mean, the thing is, he doesn't want advice. But if he does want advice, I will give it to him for nothing. I'll give it to him completely pro bono, no consultants' fees. If you're serious about the things you talk about, stop spreading misinformation yourself.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the advice. I'll write it on a little piece of paper for you if you want. This is the same guy who a couple of days ago was talking about how the world was going to end because of climate change. Sorry, mate, that's misinformation. Who's going to take you seriously now? Except partisans. But you don't want partisans to be the only ones taking you seriously, otherwise the polarization continues.
The UN has become really a fundraiser for the elitists. Really, that's what it's become. How many of those wars that Trump claims to have stopped, 7 or 8 of them, how many of them did the UN participate in? That's what they're supposed to be doing.
But even just the very fact that it's him, this man, Antonio Guterres, is the leader of the United Nations. He's a socialist. He was a socialist party leader of Portugal. Yeah. That, socialism is kind of, it's not centrism, is it? It's a very particular kind of ideology. Why did you put a socialist in charge of this organization, like somebody on the hard left? What were you thinking? What is the UN thinking? What's the UN doing? Who runs the UN? We say Canada's badly run. The absolute state of the UN
It's their version of the truth. That's why he should say our version of the truth. It's because yeah, they have become basically a fundraising organization to fill the pockets of elitists. Policies for the benefit the few at the expense of the many.
Well, who is he talking to there? Who's his audience? Like, who is he imagining his audience is when he talks there? It's not the average person around the world, is it? He is speaking to that, as you say, the sort of elite, the global elite. He's speaking to his own people.
All those policies, and Canada is still living in that world. I mean, Canada is going to lead. Carney's right. Canada's going to lead in climate competitiveness. It's the only one that's going to actually be competing because everybody else has moved on. Again, when Carney pitches this climate competitiveness, carbon tax grift here, ask the question as a reporter, how did the Americans sign the South Koreans, the Japanese, and the Germans to their LNG when they don't have a climate competitive carbon capture scheme? How did they do it? It's odd, isn't it?
How is it that the Chinese have mopped up most of the planet as customers, primary as their main customers for all of their goods?
How do the Russians still sell oil? To the Europeans, for that matter. The Europeans are still buying oil from the Russians. I can guarantee you, I would bet everything I have that Vladimir Putin doesn't have a climate competitive strategy or carbon capture strategy. Does he?
The Russians have been flaring, haven't they? They've been burning the gas for ages, which is one of the dirtiest things that you can do in gas production. The Russians don't give
the Saudis,
don't give a turd.
The Iraqis, the Iranians, I'm sure they have a climate competitive strategy. And the Venezuelans who will sell oil to anybody, I bet you they don't have a climate competitive strategy. So who are we competing with?
Well, the funny thing is, we're talking about how a lot of this is aimed at Southeast Asia, isn't it? That's our new best friend, apparently, Southeast Asia. Just go into Google, friends. Just go into Google and type in list countries by plastic put into the ocean or garbage released into the ocean. I think you'll find that basically all those countries are in Southeast Asia. I don't think they care about it either.
Well, I mean, he signed two of the biggest economies over there, Japan and South Korea. And the Chinese buy their oil from Russia, so they don't care, right? I mean, they buy coal like by the boatload from
Buy
Australia.
some of it from Canada as well.
And the Australians will sell them all the coal they want, begging them to buy their coal. Short seller, I just put a stock thing in. A short seller's having a rough year. Can you imagine what's the most shorted stock out there? It says the most shorted stocks are the ones that are just skyrocketing. Sorry, Bill Gates. Tesla's going to kick your butt. Sorry, Bill. And then we got one final thing here. You put it in here. I'll let you do this one.
It's a shame we haven't got the video.
Which one?
Oh, you talk about the football here. Talk about the soccer.
Soccer, yeah. Football, soccer, whatever you want to call it.
We don't have the video for it, but just you can see in the picture anyway, just absolutely hilarious conditions in Ottawa. And I just thought it was cute because it's basically the first, it's everywhere. Every newspaper, every news site in the world has run this. And I just think it's like the first time that the Canadian Premier League has been, anybody's realized that it exists, probably. And it's for a very good reason. Very funny game played in 2 feet of snow.
Let's see if Rommel can find it here while we're looking, see if he can find that clip, ESPN Australian, so you can play it. Well, they play football in snow all the time, like the Canadian football, not the English football.
Yeah. Association football.
That looks like rather deep snow. Is it snowing out there in the nation's capital? I know Toronto's
Hell yeah.
Dusting.
There was a massive, for early November, there was a massive dump of snow. Yeah, it was pretty pretty wild. But it was -8 degrees, and it was snowing constantly. They had to pause the game. They were coming out to clean the pitch.
We're going to play the clip here for you.
Anyone's to claim in the air. Bicycle! Oh my God!
There you go. That's good. That's good. So you can do the long slide in the snow, though, right?
Yeah. What I love about this as well, I've been to a couple of their games. I let it go, Ottawa. I recommend it. So they're now the champions. Bravo to them. But what's so funny is the team consists of Mexicans, I think Puerto Ricans or something like that. They're like a lot of them are from Latin America. So it's like that added hilarity that's like snow for the players that have like probably never seen snow, and they still won. So bravo.
So we're not going to be on tomorrow because tomorrow is Remembrance Day, and then you can look up in your area. We'll be live streaming the Kelowna, so we will be on around 11. We'll be live streaming the ceremony at Kelowna at the Cenopath there at City Park. We'll be live streaming the ceremony, but I'm sure you can find many other ceremonies taking place, especially in the Okanagan as well, and throughout Canada. There'll be ceremonies taking place all over the place. And if you can't make it out, you can watch ours live. You can come to Now Media here, and you can watch the ceremony live. It will be on before 11, obviously, probably around 10:30. You can find us live. And then Ian and I will be back on Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. Here with our news commentary. Our show is about an hour, hour and a half. I think it's usually around an hour and a half. And you're not going to find these stories on CBC. You're going to find narratives on CBC and CTV. So we appreciate it if you could like, share, and get this out to as many people as possible. You're going to need to wake people up to the new climate grift that's coming, carbon capture. We're going to be competing in a competition of one, I think. 60% tax credits. That's 60% tax credits. Just think if you could get that, hey? 60% tax credits for your industry, hey? And obviously,
bear in mind as well, it's like that's a very limited weapon that can be used. That's like those are like your nuclear weapons, aren't they? As a government, so you got to make sure that you've got a good target. You're going to use it, and it tells you something that's what they've chosen to use it for. The subsidies aren't going on to other industries.
And then some of the Conservative MPs have even said that they're actually putting that on their books as an asset. A tax credit that they give to somebody as an asset. What? Like what? Like now that's fancy. That's a fancy feast if I've ever seen one. Lots of problems going on for sure. BC definitely has lots of them. We're going to see if we can get some people in forestry. Good interview there with CHBCAO on housing. Again, lots of lip service. There's a good interview with Vasi Kapelis and Sean Fraser talking about his failures of the past. And, they're pitching these things. She actually calls them out pretty good. I was going to put it in today, but we had so much in there already. She calls out his past failures. You're basically saying the same thing over and over again. I mean, that's what the Liberals have been doing. It's basically rehash, reuse, new slogans, more slogans, slogan. Anyway. Anything else?
Just, remember tomorrow what it's all about.
Yeah.
The people that actually did do something real, made actual real sacrifices, the real deal, the people whose successes now in the military are treated like garbage. Just think about them in the mud being shot at by the Germans.
Now think of our Canadian military.
Or whoever.
Underfunded, underpaid, under-equipped, undermanned, and then living in substandard housing. That's from the Auditor General. 7 of 14 places she inspected didn't even. Unsafe drinking water, no running toilets, deteriorating walls. How many 10 years of hand-wringing on F-35 still don't have it? A submarine fleet of diesel subs, I think only one runs. And we're going to replace them. We're still hand-wringing what we're going to replace them with. Even Australia is looking at a nuclear sub. I don't know who makes these decisions, but it's not for the betterment of this nation, that's for sure. And it's time to, if you care about Canada, it's time to raise your voice. With that said, we do thank you for watching Now Media.
We don't just report the news, we live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent. News you can trust.